Okay, I'm recording. It's Tuesday, April 2nd, 2013, and we're reading the natal charts of Kevin. And I'm just going to call you Dark Side on this reading. But the dark side is sometimes the good side, man, because the dark side is like the womb of creation. That's like the black sun. That's my understanding from the people who've tapped into some of that. It ain't always what people think it is. So I'll call you Dark Side. And Kevin, too. But, okay, let me just get this moved over here. So, Kevin. Dark Side Infinity, you know? Dark Side Infinity. So, looking at your astrocartography chart, starting a little bit unconventionally. Normally I start with the natal chart, but let's start with the astrocartography, because you're talking about coming out and hanging out with Jordan. Astrocartography shows the planetary energies you're living under different locations on the Earth. So if you come out to Los Angeles, you're under a Jupiter line, you're under a Uranian line, you're under a Mars line. So the Jupiter line, that's real damn good to have because you have a North Node, Dragon's Head, and Sagittarius. On a technical basis, the North Node, technically speaking, is where the moon crosses the ecliptic heading towards the North Pole. That's also known as the Dragon's Head. Why that's important? That Dragon's Head is the destiny of the chart, in my opinion. That's the area one taps into that basically like brings in the magic, brings in the destiny, brings in where you're going. Okay, your North Node is in Sagittarius. So relating this to the astrocartography chart, you're living under a Jupiter line in Los Angeles. So when you come to California, that line, and that chart I'm talking about, that's the chart on the bottom of the email. It shows a map of the United States. And you'll see like a reddish purple line with a 4 symbol. That's the symbol of Jupiter. That energy extends about 500 miles east and 500 miles west of that line. So you, under the Jupiter line, let me get the distance on this from Los Angeles. The point being is you coming out to LA based on this astrocartography, it ain't a waste of time. It's not a waste of time. So you're getting about 65 to 75% of that energy here in LA, and you're directly under the Uranus line. We'll get into that in a minute too. So why that's important? Your North Node's in Sagittarius, and Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. So what Jupiter's about, Jupiter's the lord of luck, growth, and expansion. Anything Jupiter touches, it's known as a benefic planet. It makes things grow. But on another level, what Jupiter rules intuitive knowing. Jupiter's about altruisms, integrity, ethics, being optimistic, doing what's good for people. It's an optimistic planet. Sometimes they say Jupiter is jovial. It's another thing too about Jupiter. Jupiter is the philosopher. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is opposite Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is the disparate, separate facts. Jupiter is that ability in one's psyche that takes all those facts, synthesizes them together, and says, it means this, folks. So someone with a North Node in Sagittarius, with Jupiter being in Capricorn in your 11th house, what that means is you're basically here to tell people, like, hey, I've got a vision, people. I've got an overarching philosophy that you really need to listen to what I'm saying, because I'm talking about some big, deep stuff. So this relates to your astrocartography. This might be why you feel compelled, you hear Jordan Maxwell talk, you want to come out here and talk to this guy, because your Jupiter line's here, and you know, maybe these stars, in terms of the subconscious, look, there's our conscious mind, then there's our subconscious mind, which is functioning on a higher level, we're not consciously aware of it. But there might be some part of you that's just saying, I got to go out there, meet this guy, and talk to this guy. I don't know why, but I'm here to say, because it probably has something to do with your Jupiter energy. You're feeling compelled and drawn towards that energy, and that Jupiter energy is part of your destiny. You've got a North Node in Sagittarius in the 10th house of public standing. Okay, so you know there's something this guy knows and something I know. We got to communicate. We're going to get it. Now, another thing, too, about you're living under a Uranus line in Los Angeles. Now, Uranian energy, Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. So Mercury's how I'm communicating now. I'm speaking a language. It's relatively primitive, using a syntax. I'm air over vocal cords moistened by mucus. That's Mercury, okay? How's the weather? Turn left here, go to Google Maps, go here. Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. That's communicating with an alien civilization using telepathy, okay? That's the nature of Uranus. The point being is, Uranus is the higher octave. It's a higher level of thought. It's a higher mentality. It's basically the genius quality. It's deviating 2 standard deviations from the statistical mean in terms of intelligence. It's basically saying, I don't accept your third-rate version of reality. It's BS. I see a little deeper. I see a little more. And I think what you're talking about is very primitive. I'm saying this because in LA, you're also living under a Uranus line. If you come out here, so you're going to feel the energy of Jupiter, you're going to feel the energy of Uranus. So that means out here, because I think, let me check what if your Mercury's talking to you, Uranus. Let me look at your specific planetary aspects for a moment here. What's Uranus doing in your chart? Mercury. Okay, I'll get back to that in a minute. But anyway, you've got Jupiter talking to Uranus. Just the point being is, when you come out to LA under a Uranian line, that's where you end up being the total maverick. The good thing is, though, LA's full of mavericks. Los Angeles gets a bad rap for being a town of superficial flakes who just want to be famous and stab anybody in the back to get there. And that's true. That's a big part of what LA's about. But also, too, LA's full of people like Jordan Maxwell and people who are just they're just stepping way outside the third-rate version of reality. Like myself, I haven't had a lot of dealings with people in Los Angeles who are just functioning on that real superficial, or they're seeking fame. There's a lot of them here, but that's just not been my experience here, probably because I'm hanging out with people like Maxwell and such. The point being is, you've got a Uranus line here. So when you come here, you're going to be coming here probably hooking up with some people. Jordan might be one of them, and he may be who'll introduce you to some people where they're thinking a little bit outside the box, tapping into a bit of a higher mentality. You also have a Mars line here in Los Angeles. You're under that influence. And Mars is the energy of assertion. So you come out here, you might be very active. Usually where there's a Mars line, that just means, man, one's on the go. They're not sitting on their butt. They're activated. So you come out to LA, I'm saying the main thing is that Jupiter line. That's the ruler of your North Node, Dragon's Head, and Sagittarius. So it's not a wasted trip. You know what I mean? It's a good thing to do. Okay, so now let's start getting into your natal chart. I can come back to that if you've got questions. Let's go into the sky map natal chart. Now I'm looking at the chart that I drew up by hand. So when we get into this chart, let's talk about this. We're using constellations. I don't like astrological signs, as I said, to get into some of the technicalities of it, put it on a recording. What's called astrology today, in my mind, the Greeks called it astrology, study of the stars, because they considered the planets to be wandering stars. But strictly speaking, astrology today has no stars in it. The Greeks, when they went into Egypt, when they came out, for some reason, they removed the sky. So there's no stars in so-called astrology, which means astro, which is a rearrangement of the letters that spell star, and ology means study of. There's no stars in it. What they did, they took the ecliptic, and they divided it up into 12 30-degree equal sectors. It's unfortunate they call it ecliptical sector 1 Aries, because that misleads people into thinking the constellation of Aries had something to do with the astrological sign called Aries. They're night and day different. They're apples and oranges. They got nothing to do with each other. Why I'm saying this? Because on the day you were born, if we look at your chart conventionally, let me see what the conventional astrologers would say you are. They would say your sun's an Aries. And they would describe you as an Aries. But when you look at the sky on the day you were born, 26th of March, 1973, what was actually in the sky was the constellation of Pisces. Your sun is in Pisces. And your sun's in a part of Pisces that's close to Cetus. Cetus is a constellation below Pisces known as the Sea Monster. So you got a little bit of Pisces there, and you got a little bit of Cetus. Now, what that means, Cetus has a lot to do, I've heard the interpretation of that is exploding the collective unconsciousness. That means just dropping some spiritual stuff on people where they're going, holy crap. Jordan Maxwell's got something going on a little bit with Cetus. It has to do with his dragon's tail. And I do think he qualifies as someone who's exploding the collective unconscious and the consciousness. But you've got your sun in Pisces. So the sun in your chart, you're a Pisces in my book. You don't have anything in Aries. To read you as an Aries is I just don't think it's right. I like using the constellations what God put there, or the Creator, whatever you want to call it. Okay, it's not man-made. Give me what Mother Nature and the universe put there. So your sun being in Pisces, the sun in the chart represents one's basic style. The sun is that little circle with a dot in the middle. That's the sun. That's your basic life energy. You've got to, it's like the sun shining. You've got to express that every day. If you can't express Piscean energy, Pisces is spirituality. If you can't express that every day, Pisces is also music, because music's very spiritual. You're a musician. I mean, I can see just by the things you put on YouTube, the links you sent me to your music, you're a natural musician. That's it. Okay? Because your sun's in Pisces. This being said, Pisces is very spiritual. If one can't express their sun energy every day, that's basically like having the sun be obscured by some very severe storm. It's just not a happy time. Okay? Thunderbolts, bats, lightning, all that shit. Right? But when you can express your sun energy, it's basically like the sun shining. The plants are growing, the temperature's moderate, it feels good. The point I'm making is you need to express Piscean energy every single day. That's where your sun's at. You're a spiritual person. It's just your nature. Now, this is another reason why you might feel this compelling need to connect with Jordan Maxwell, because his dragon's tail is in Pisces. So, you know, he's talking about things of a very Piscean nature, which you're naturally drawn to. And you attract those things, too, because your Venus is in Pisces. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Venus has to do with how one relates to other people, how one relates to themselves. In short, Venus rules, on one level, it rules relationships. So, you see a person with their Venus in Pisces. These are very compassionate people. They're very compassionate. That's the nature of Venus and Pisces. Now, as I said and we talked about, and you made me aware of, you also have to look at what Venus talks to, too. So it's not enough just to say, okay, Kevin's got Venus and Pisces, so he's just Mr. Compassionate. You can just roll all over him. Because your Venus is talking to Pluto, and your Venus is talking to Mars, and your Mars is talking to Pluto. You can be very compassionate. Probably one of the most compassionate people some people have ever met. But with that Mars talking to Pluto, as you said, you could be a little ruthless too. Okay? But the point being is, it's just Mars talking to Pluto. We'll get into that in a minute. But Pluto's the higher octave of Mars. That just means indomitable will. That when I want to do something, I'm doing it. You better be pretty damn persuasive if you're going to stop me from doing what I need to do. Because Mars is the energy of assertion, and Pluto is a higher octave of Mars. So Pluto just means raw power. Also, too, let me double check, but I think your Venus talks to Pluto. What that would mean, yeah, your Venus makes an opposition to Pluto. As I said, your Venus is in Pisces, which means compassion. It also means, too, Venus is the energy of attraction, because Venus is opposite Mars. Mars is the energy of assertion. Mars is what makes a lion go out and hunt down a gazelle. It's how you go out and get what you want. Venus is what you attract. Women are ruled by Venus. Hey, good-looking woman has power because she's got that Venusian energy, that super, that raw power of attraction. I'm saying that because Venus is also what you attract. Your Venus is in Pisces. So not only does that make you compassionate in relationships, but you also attract things of a Piscean nature. Just weird things of a spiritual nature just come your way. You ain't got to do anything about it. That's just what Venus does. These things are just attracted to you. Now, this being said, your Venus also makes a 180-degree angle to Pluto, means your Venus is talking to Pluto. Anything Pluto's talking to, it enhances the level of power, it enhances the level of talent. So getting into specifically what that means is when you relate on a very intense level. That's good to know. Some people don't have their Venus talking to Pluto. For them, hey, friendship's a friendship. It just doesn't go that deep. With you, it's like, I expect you to take a bullet from me because I'm going to take a bullet for you. Your Venus talks to Pluto. It just means when you relate deeply. And Venus being in Pisces, when you care a lot. You got this person covered, period. That's it, because you're compassionate, you know what I mean? But then again, like you said, you got that Mars, or I said, you got that Mars talking to Pluto. You got this side too. You push me too much, you're going down. That's it, permanently. I'm going to arrange that fact. So, all right, let's talk some more here. Now, another thing about you too, what rules the thinking process in a chart? The specific planet that does that is Mercury, and you've got your Mercury in Aquarius in the 12th house. So, and you've got your Mercury, your thinking process. That's that little symbol I drew with the horns on top, a little circle, and a cross on the bottom. The chart I drew up by hand in pie slice number 12. That's your Mercury. That's your thinking process. That's in Aquarius where it's exalted. Aquarius, the energy of Aquarius, it's an air constellation, which means it's intellectual. And it's fixed. So when Aquarians think something, they mean it. They don't change their minds very often. It's fixed. They're fixed in their opinion. They just know my thinking's a little more advanced than you. I'm a little smarter than you. And that's just the way it is, Jack. So when I say something, that's just the way it is. Aquarians can be like that. But your Mercury in Aquarius ruling your thinking process, it's also in the part of Aquarius, it's in one of Aquarius's arms, it's below Pisces. So you got a little bit of a spiritual dimension coming into this too. So, and this also being said, your Mercury's retrograde. So what that means when a planet's retrograde, I've read all the different interpretations of what it means, but I think what it means to me, Mercury being retrograde means you also think real deep. Because things are retrograde, the energy's turned inward a little bit, and it's a little bit slowed down, and it makes it very reflective. So people with Mercury retrograde, they ponder what's said. They ponder things. They think about things deeply. I mean, deep. They go deep. Sometimes it takes them a little longer to process something, because when somebody says to somebody with Mercury retrograde, E equals MC squared, they start thinking about all the implications and they realize, well, damn, that means time's moving at a different rate at my head than it is at my feet due to the effects of gravity, and they're going to have to, see what I'm saying? They start thinking real deep. It might seem like a real simple, something very simple is said to them. E equals MC squared. Oh yeah, that's just 3 or 4 symbols. No big deal. I get what that means. Not somebody with Mercury retrograde. Wait a second. And then people might think they're a little stupid sometimes because they're thinking so deep. It's like, wait a second, I'm just trying to understand what you said here. And what it means. And then 3 weeks later, while everybody else has moved on, the person with Mercury retrograde has gone so deep, they've come up with stuff that nobody's ever thought about. Like, whoa, I didn't realize when you said 2 plus 2 equals 4, it had all these philosophical implications and such, and here's Kevin explicating on that. That's the point. Your Mercury's retrograde, so it's intensified. You think very, very deep. And it's just below Pisces. It's almost moving into Pisces. So, once again, your thoughts are on things of a spiritual nature, in my opinion. Also, too, this Mercury of yours is in the 12th house in Aquarius. Aquarius has to do, it's ruled by Uranus. Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. So people with this energy of Aquarius means universal brotherhood and sisterhood. It means what's good for humanity, what's good for the species. It means learning how to respect each other's individual rights and such. So you've got your Mercury in Aquarius in that 12th house. Mercury likes to communicate. 12th house in my book, I do things a little differently. 12th house is the house of work and service. So you're a communicator too. But you're communicating stuff, Mercury retrograde in Aquarius, where you're communicating shit like you're not talking about the laws in the local kingdom. You're talking about laws that are of a cosmic nature, universal nature. Like, folks, this shit applies across the board. I don't care what galaxy you're in. This is the way it is. This is the way it works in this reality we're looking at here. That's in your 12th house. You're an Aquarius there. Okay? But then again, you've got to look at the 2 rulers of Aquarius. One of the rulers of Aquarius, the dignified ruler, is Uranus, which you have in Virgo, which is also retrograde. Then the dignified co-ruler of Aquarius is Saturn, and you've got Saturn in your 3rd house. The 3rd house is also the house of the mind. You've got Saturn and Taurus and the horns of the bull in the 3rd house. So you're thinking. You know, you're bringing in this spiritual Aquarian dimension to what you really do. The 12th house is the house of work and service. Yeah, we both understand at this particular moment you're driving a truck, but that ain't your real work and service to the world. In my opinion, based on this chart, your real work and service to the world is, folks, I'm bringing in some cosmic shit that you need to think about. And that's what you're really here to do, is communicate that. Okay, the truck driving, whatever you got to do to make a buck, just like me, that's incidental stuff. I'm talking, I think these stars, Kevin, and you might understand this better than me because you're a spiritual guide. I know you're going to ponder this, and you might take this and invent your own school of astrology, take it to a far higher level than I ever could. But I think with these charts, my observation has been, this chart tells you what your real heart's desire is, what's really motivating you. That doesn't always square so nicely with the third-rate version of reality we're given in the history books and in school. You know what I mean? And you sometimes get a lot of resistance when you start being who you really are, which, you know, more than just what you face it. I mean, basically on this planet, we're all given a birth certificate, and we're basically supposed to be worker bees. That's it. You know, you're supposed to have a hive mentality, and you're a worker bee. That's it. After you inseminate, the queen die. That's it. You know what I'm saying? But what you're really doing, it has to do with this Aquarius, Uranus in Virgo, Saturn in the third house. The third house is also the mind, as is the planet Mercury. They're all working together. And really, you're a communicator. Now, another thing, too, about this, your dragon's head. Let's get into the dragon's head and dragon's tail. Your dragon's tail, which is, technically speaking, it's where the moon crosses the ecliptic heading towards the South Pole. What that means, though, that dragon's tail, that represents, in my book, personality characteristics and traits that were taken to a very high level. That's just how one coped in past lives. They developed these characteristics to a very high level. What that means in this life, that's where one naturally goes, because it's the south node of the moon, and the moon's super instinctual. The moon itself, that little banana-looking thing I drew in pie slice number 10, that's the moon. That's very instinctual. The moon rules Cancer. Cancer rules the stomach. When you put food in your mouth, it just tastes the way it tastes. You have no conscious control. That's some of the nature of the moon. It's just instinctual. You just go there. Well, I found the south node of the moon. That's that upside-down horseshoe-looking shape I put in Gemini in pie slice number 4. That's the south node. That's even more instinctual than the damn moon itself, has been my observation. So your south node of the moon is in Gemini, and Gemini is intellectuality. Gemini is knowledge. Do not believe this bullshit about Gemini being superficial and flaky. Gemini only gets that reputation because Gemini can shift perspectives intellectually very, very quick. It can ponder this, ponder that, ponder this, ponder that. Some people might consider that superficiality. No, that's Gemini just being the eternal student. I want to learn about this, I want to learn about that, I want to learn about that. That being said, you with a dragon's tail in Gemini, some of the liability of that could be you just never quite know if you know enough. Because Gemini is an air constellation. It wants to know. It wants intellectuality. It's like Mr. Spock. It wants a logical explanation. That's just naturally where you go. You're the eternal student. You're the eternal teacher. Gemini likes to teach. It likes to learn. It's ruled by Mercury. Mercury likes to communicate. You have Mercury exalted retrograde in Aquarius, which means you got some deep shit to say to people. Very deep. And you're always trying to get the word out there to them, try to communicate it to them. And to a degree, you're supposed to do that because, well, anyway, that dragon's tail can sometimes get stressful because we all get stuck there. I'll use myself as a convenient example. My dragon's tail is in Virgo. So Virgo means being anal retentive, obsessive compulsive, worry about every single microscopic detail. But it's my dragon's tail. I get stuck there because I instinctually go there. I get stuck there. So the antidote to the stress that dragon's tail causes, because it gets a little stressful trying to manage every single microscopic detail down to the electron molecular level. Okay? That gets to be stressful. My north node's in Pisces. Pisces basically means let go, look at the big picture. Okay, relevant to your chart. Dragon's tail in Gemini. Never feel like you know enough. Always looking for a logical explanation. You've got a dragon's head in Sagittarius in the 10th house. Sagittarius is not ruled by Mercury. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Sagittarius' dignified co-ruler is Neptune. So what that means is, at a certain point in time, you just got to surrender to your intuition, to the vision, to your instincts. That's it. Now, you're somewhat already there because you have your moon, which is very instinctual, right next to your north node in Sagittarius. So what that means in my book, you basically dealt with your karma a little bit. I don't understand the mechanism, Kevin. You might understand past lives a lot better than me. I'll give you my crude explanation, but if you've got a personal planetary body right next to your north node, that means you've kind of been given the green light to not have some of the negative stress always associated with the dragon's tail, because you're already instinctually in your north node. You're already in Sagittarius because you've got a personal planetary body, the moon itself. That's that banana-looking thing next to the horseshoe-looking thing in house number 10. And Sagittarius means intuitive knowing, trusting one's instinct, looking at the big picture, adding up all the details, coming up with an overarching philosophy as to what all this detail and all these facts mean. And you got it in the 10th house. The 10th house is the house of public standing, career, and eminence. Jordan Maxwell has his north node in Virgo in the 10th house. I can tell you from knowing the man for 16 years, he did not set out to be world famous. But he has a north node in the 10th house. 10th house is the house of public standing and eminence. So he is known worldwide, kind of despite himself. I personally think, my theory, that's the dragon's head. It put him there. Point being is, you got a dragon's head in the 10th house, public standing and career. You're meant to be somebody. It's not necessarily be somebody you're seeking fame for fame's sake, but you've got a message. Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. That means Neptune's the vision. Sagittarius is the philosophy. You just know. I got something. People need to know who I am. They got to hear what I got to say, because I got a way of interpreting this reality. All this shit we see going on around us. When you connect the dots, folks, it means this. See? And you got your moon there in Sagittarius next to that dragon's head in the 10th house. That's just where you at all the time. Because the moon itself, that banana-looking thing, that's one's emotional response to life. It's just instinctual. So for some reason, you're already given the green light to go into your dragon's head. A lot of people have a hard time getting to that dragon's head. That dragon's tail is like smoking. That's where everybody gets stuck. Hey, smoking's my habitual response to things. I enjoy smoking. Dragon's head is quitting smoking. It's healthy for you. It's better for you, but it feels strange to people. They're not used to going there. Like me, I'm used to being in Virgo. I want to micromanage everything. Going into Pisces, my dragon's head feels weird. I got to learn to let go. Just go with the flow. It's my dragon's head. It don't come easy to me. You're allowed to go into your dragon's head because you got the moon there. So you on some level, maybe consciously you forgot about it, but there's some part of you that knows what's being said here. You already did the work to get there a little bit. Now, in my opinion, you're coming back to publish the word far and wide. Another reason I say that too, your dragon's head is in, let me make sure your phone call's still here. Good. Okay. Your dragon's head is in Sagittarius in the 10th house. The dignified co-ruler of Sagittarius is Neptune. You've got Neptune in a constellation called Ophiuchus in the 9th house of publishing. So 9th house is the house of travel. 9th house is the house of publishing. 9th house just basically means wherever you got, spread it far and wide. So you've got the dignified co-ruler of your dragon's head in Sag in the 9th house of publishing, Neptune there, and Ophiuchus. When you say dark side, that's what Ophiuchus and Scorpio represent. Let's put it this way. Taurus is the fixed, tangible, material world, what you can see, taste, see, smell, and hear. Ophiuchus, Scorpio are the primordial energies underlying material reality. So, in a sense, I guess you could call that death, for lack of a better word. You've got the Neptune there in the 9th house of publishing in Ophiuchus, which is the dignified ruler of your dragon's head in Sagittarius in the 10th house. You here to publish some stuff of a very spiritual, Neptunian, visionary nature, because Neptune rules dreams and visions and stuff. Neptune is, Gemini, Mercury is communicating things through this language which I talked about. It's a very primitive way of communicating. Neptune is communicating through art, communicating through inspiration, communicating through music. Things that just, music. You can't really convey with music the fact that the capital of Wyoming is Cheyenne. I mean, it's kind of hard to say that in an instrumental piece of music. But with that music, you can communicate the depth of your feelings about something, the passion, whether it's happy or sad. Neptune just breaks down normal boundaries of communication. It gets right to the damn soul. That's true of music. I can play music, a song for someone who doesn't speak my language at all. It's completely foreign to me, but they'll hear the song and they know. They'll know this is happy, this is sad, it's a love song. They're just going to know by the sound of the music, because Neptune, it rules music and it dissolves normal boundaries of communication. This is some of what you're dealing with, Kevin. You got Neptune and Ophiuchus. Now, another thing, too, if you go look up Ophiuchus online and you look up the symbolism of Ophiuchus symbol on the zodiac, it's a man holding a snake. So, that right there, a man holding a snake, my interpretation of that symbolism is that's like a shaman taming the primordial forces of nature. That's what that snake represents. It's deep stuff. Another thing, too, I'll throw this on a recording. I'm of the opinion, not only is Jesus Lucifer, which the Catholic Encyclopedia admits, but Jesus is also Ophiuchus. This is another hidden story. Point being, Ophiuchus, that's a shamanistic energy. That's like someone tapping into some deep dream state, accessing some dimension of reality that the rest of the tribe is like, holy crap, man, the medicine man's doing his dance, and we ain't here on Earth anymore. I don't know what happened. But you're supposed to do this, and you got Neptune retrograde, so this stuff is like very, very intense. It's operating on a real personal level. You going real deep with this stuff. I mean, the stuff you're coming up is deep. Also, too, Ophiuchus is ruled by Pluto. Pluto is the truth. Pluto's the raw truth. I don't care how ugly it is, how scary it is, how dark it is. Pluto's the truth, because Pluto means power, and knowledge is power. Loose lips sink ships. So you, with Neptune and Ophiuchus, you're basically saying, I got some spiritual truth. You need to hear whether you like it or not. But when you hear it, Ophiuchus is also a healer, because the truth is healing. Once you strip away all the bullshit and you get to what's... Let's face it, in this world, man, the false is always in the lead, you know? But that false is like a lot of crap layered on top of everything, and we all know that's not so healthy. That's not good mental hygiene. And the truth, when you strip away all that bullshit and you get to something real, now you're practicing some good soul and mental hygiene. That's a little bit about what you're about, okay? Some real, and I say that because you've got your Pluto in a constellation called Common Berenices. I'll get into that in a minute, but it's in the part of Common Berenices that's just over Virgo. Virgo's about cleanliness. Virgo rules the intestines. That's where in your body the wheat and the chaff get separated, so to speak. The functions of the intestines is to eliminate the waste. Also, too, Virgo, with symbolism, it's a virgin holding a shaft of wheat. Her job is to basically separate the wheat from the chaff. You want to eat the wheat. You don't want to eat the chaff. So it's basically about purity. It's about cleanliness. It's about hygiene. And that's you've got Pluto right there over Virgo. And Pluto rules Ophiuchus, where your Neptune is. And Neptune is the dignified co-ruler of your North Node in Sagittarius. You're really here to clean some shit up. That's what you're here to do. You know? Like, we're going to practice some good soul and mental hygiene here, folks. You need to start looking at this stuff. All right. Let me pause for a second, Kevin. I got to catch my breath here, man, because this is some deep stuff. That's true, yeah, man. A lot of stuff I'm saying, you might consider it very flattering, but, I mean, but what it means is, like, in terms of, like, the day-to-day world, it might sound like you're kind of special, but that doesn't make it any easier functioning in day-to-day reality, because you're carrying some deep stuff that you can't necessarily talk to the man on the street about. Or you can't necessarily maybe talk to some people in your family about. They might just think, man, you just way out there. You know, it might cause some problems, like when you're just trying to relate to people. You know what I'm saying? Because like you ain't messing around, man. You ain't pussyfooting around. I would know that even before I saw your website. I think we talked about some of this stuff in your preliminary chart. And the value I'm hoping in doing this chart is like knowing, like, man, this is how I'm constituted down to a molecular level. I mean, this has been established and ordained by the damn universe, what I'm all about. Therefore, you can embrace who you really are and just go about doing what you gotta do. You know, because having a chart like this, like let's take Jordan Maxwell, for instance. He's got a North Node in the 10th house like you do. His is a different energy. His North Node's in Virgo, which means he's here to explain things completely logical, which he does about spirituality. Your North Node's in Sagittarius, which means I'm just going to drop a vision on you. It's going to blow your brain out of your ears. That's it. You know what I mean? It's a whole different thing. But, that being said, carrying that around in your soul, that might make it a little difficult to relate, like on a day-to-day level to people, because they're just going to think, man, why can't you just do your job, get your paycheck, go home, drink a couple beers, and go to sleep? Why you got to be out there trying to set the damn world on fire? What you doing, Kevin? You know what I'm saying? So this is where I think like some of the value of this comes in. Sometimes people with a chart like this, it's not so easy getting through the mundane day-to-day reality because they're feeling like, man, my damn soul's ready to explode what I got to share with people. But then you got to get through the day-to-day mundane reality of things, you know? So sometimes it's like having a chart like this sometimes can be a real burden in terms of like relating to the people around you because you just one intense dude, man. That's your Pluto talking to your Venus, and your Venus talking to your Mars, and your Mars talking to that Pluto. You know? That's just like, I mean, it's in your resignation letter. You know what I mean? It's like, don't even dick around with me, and you don't know who you're dicking around with here. I'm saying? See, but what also, too, these charts, I don't have the answers to all this stuff. You might think about what I'm saying, given the work you've done and the things you've shown me. You might be able to take what I'm saying and like really ponder it with that Mercury retrograde and really get what's going on here. But I think what this chart's showing is what's going on with the part of you that's called the soul, for lack of a better word. I may even be using the wrong word, but that's hard, in my opinion, to be consciously aware of. Because my opinion is, this is just what I've observed with my chart and other people's chart. Your soul's not really in the conscious mind, and like your ego's dealing with the third-rate version of reality we've been delivered. But that soul is like looking into infinity. It ain't, the ego's looking at, what am I going to eat next? When am I going to go to the bathroom? I got to go to the store and get this. I got to do this tomorrow. I got to be here next week. The ego's dealing with stuff like that. The soul is like looking 20, 30 million years ahead of time. You know what I'm saying? It might even be looking beyond time. So my observation has been is if the ego gets too out of line with the soul, then the soul will arrange things in certain fashions. You realize, damn, why did I get hit by that car? You know what I mean? And that might be the soul arranging things in such a way, basically saying, you on the wrong path. So I'm going to have to whoop you upside the head and give you some downtime so you got some time to contemplate what's really important. Now, when you get this chart and you start to see some of these things that are really motivating you, you know, because you're motivated by, in my opinion, you tell me if I'm wrong, but you're motivated by, I got a vision and an overarching philosophy I'm going to drop on the wall, it's going to blow your brain out of your skull. That's it. Okay? That's what I see here. Once you know that's what's really going on a deep level, now you can align the ego. See, I don't buy this stuff where people say you've got to destroy the ego. No, the ego's there for a reason. It serves a purpose. It's like a lens that like focuses the energy of the soul onto the screen that gives you the movie. But the ego gets too out of alignment with the soul, then you start getting into some funky problems. Once you get the ego lined up with what's going on a deeper level, what's motivating you at like the core, you know, and this might even be beyond the core, Kevin. This stuff here with the stars, my theory at this time, there's something going on in the stars where this is affecting the genetics, and like we all have our role within the species. And what you're doing on the soul level, like the ego wants to think about getting rich, and I need some money, and I need this, and I need that, and I need a new car, and I got to pay this bill. And the soul, somehow through these stars, because they're living things, is saying, no, you got a specific destiny within the evolution and advancement of this species. And I don't care if you're consciously aware of it, doesn't matter. It's going to manifest through you. This thing's living through you. So I got to think that one through and see if I can one day articulate it a little better. But when I look at these charts and I look at my chart, I mean, and you start looking at the sky, you start realizing this whole damn thing's alive. It's alive. You know? So anyway, so with your chart, it's like, yeah, maybe right at this particular moment you're driving a truck and you're thinking about resigning and all this, but what you're really doing, you're here to drop something on the human race. We're like, you folks, hey, who knows? It might be 1 million people, it might be 1,000 people, it might be 10 people, but you're here to drop some information on some people where it's like, you need to be thinking about this stuff, you know? Because you ain't looking at the whole damn picture. And also, too, you on a personal level. If you don't honor that, you don't honor what you're here to do, I mean, life can get real ugly. People can end up being real damn unhappy. You know what I mean? I don't know specifically what could happen, but you just end up feeling like, man, there's something in me I'm not living up to, and I've got to honor it. Now, I'm hoping by reading the stars, You already know all this stuff about yourself. I'm just articulating it a little more clearly and corroborating probably what you always felt, which should give some confidence, like to embrace it even more fully. You know? I already know you already know a lot of this stuff. It's not that you don't use my language. You've got your own language for it. I'm just here to reinforce all that. And so this being said, though, with your chart, let me see what there is to say next. There's a lot to say. I'm thinking about how to say this, because you got that North Node in Sagittarius. Well, another thing, too. Your North Node in Sagittarius, the ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter. You've got your Jupiter in Capricorn in the 11th house. And the energy of Capricorn means like doing things world-class, first-class. Capricorn's a little bit the energy of the snobs. I'm not saying you're a snob, but Capricorn is like that. Everything's classic. Everything's A1. Everything's primo. And that's where the ruler of your dragon's head, Jupiter, happens to be in Capricorn, in the 11th house. The 11th house is known as the house of friends and wishes. But these are not the kind of friends you're going to the sports bar with, drinking a beer, catching a buzz, and watching the game. These are the kind of friends that have some professional standing in their field of endeavor. And when you have people like that you can network with, they can scratch your back, you can scratch your back, and then you get somewhere in life. You get somewhere professionally. The point being is your Jupiter is in Capricorn in that 11th house, and your North Node is in Sagittarius, which Jupiter rules. You ain't supposed to be dealing with any chumps on your real mission in life. You're supposed to be, in my opinion, connecting with people that got something going for them. You're supposed to be the best of the best in their field. And that's that. That's how I see that. Make sense? And that Jupiter's in Capricorn too, and the ruler of Capricorn is Saturn. And you've got your Saturn in the 3rd house in the area of the mind in Taurus. So that Jupiter, there's definitely something going on with Saturn here. I know you talked about the planet Saturn specifically, but that's even reinforced in your chart. You've got your Jupiter, the ruler of your North Node, the destiny of the chart, in the constellation that Saturn rules. Okay? So, when you talk about Saturn, I don't know specifically what it means. I haven't been living your life, but when you talk about that, your stars do reflect that awfully strongly. Very, very strongly. Okay? It's there. Also, too, in that Capricorn, you have Mars in Capricorn. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Mars functions very well in Capricorn. Let me go on a bit of a tangent here. Mars rules Aries. But Mars and Aries can be like somebody just throwing an M80 into the air and the damn thing explodes and makes a big noise and goes boom and everybody goes, yeah, that was cool, and they clap their hands, right? Mars in Capricorn is like, why don't I take that explosive energy, drive it, put it into a combustible engine, have it turn this thing here called a drive shaft, and that will propel these things called wheels forward. Point being, Mars in Capricorn is the engineer. It likes to operate efficiently. It likes to maximize its gains on its energy. So you, with Mars in Capricorn, once again, it means that it's in the 11th house, house of friends and wishes. You're supposed to be around people. They ain't wasting any damn time. That's it. They think strategically, because Capricorn has to rule by Saturn. Saturn has to do a lot with strategic thinking. And they do things A1. They do things efficiently. They lock the target. Lock the crosshairs on the target. They fire, and bam, it's precise. It hits it. Make sense? This is a little bit how you operate, Mars and Capricorn. You're supposed to operate that way. Now that makes sense too. You can make that reconcile with you being a chess player. That's what chess is all about. I'm going to kill your king as fast as possible. And that's what my nickname, so to speak, on my chess team was the Assassin. That's what they called me.
Isn't it weird I just said that, to kill the king?
Right.
I don't know anything about that, but when you start talking about these stars, for some damn weird reason, it starts reflecting specific things in your life. Now, some people say, hey, that's bullshit. You're just taking very general things and you're just using selection bias to make it apply to specific circumstances. That could be. But it is uncanny, I just said that. You going in there with as quickly as possible to go in there strategically, kill that king. I ain't wasting one damn move. I studied. This is why I'm the best. The best of the best. That's it. Because I think strategically, and I don't want to waste any moves, don't want to waste any energy. But your whole life's conducted this way. very efficient, Mars and Capricorn. See? But you got to look at the house it's in. So what this means, and then your Saturn's in the third house, so you've got a lot of a very Capricornian nature. Now, another thing, too, about Capricorn rules death, because Saturn rules death. Cancer rules birth. Cancer is the moon. The moon and Venus rule women. Obviously, women have something to do with birth. Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. Saturn rules death. Saturn rules the point in your life between 67 years old and 84 years old. That's usually when most people die. That's when most people die. So on one level, it rules death. So when you basically say dark side infinity, you might not be consciously aware of why you said that, but your chart reflects that. You got something going on with that Neptune and Ophiuchus, Saturn, Jupiter and Mars and Capricorn, where you're not afraid to look at that dark side. You know there's more than going on than just what's going on with this flesh and blood here. So, this Jupiter, let me see something here, Kevin. Let me take a look here. Now, another thing, too, this dragon's tail represents the past lives. If we look at your past lives, you got a dragon's tail in Gemini with Mercury exalted in Aquarius right below Pisces. When you talk about Saturn and the galaxy and the solar system and some of the things you told me on the phone, that fourth house also represents one's home, one's tribe, one's clan. It represents home and hearth. And you got Gemini, dragon's tail, in the fourth house of home and hearth, but you got the ruler of that dragon's tail in Aquarius, and Aquarius means galactic and cosmic. Your real home, where you really coming from, ain't from Earth on a soul level. As weird and as off the wall as that might sound, your real home ain't here. Your real home's somewhere way out there. Way out there. But for some reason, I know this sounds weird, but you came back here to deliver a message. Exactly. And you're coming from somewhere out there. You're coming from somewhere out there. Another thing about Sagittarius symbol is the archer. Now, people say they give a very romantic notion to Sagittarius being the archer. It's a horse's lower torso with a man's torso on a horse's body with horse's legs, and it has an arrow. I personally think that means that's the ancient equivalent of an F-16 fighter jet. If guys are mounted on horses coming at you with bows and arrows, which relative to the antiquity, that was an advanced form of technology, that's like an ultra-modern, in that context, ultra-modern fighting machine. That these guys are so damn deadly, so damn efficient, such warriors, because Sagittarius was the energy of the conquistadors. That has a lot to do with Spain and why they went into South America. This is not this romantic notion they give to Sagittarius. Sagittarius is fire, and that's a warrior. That's a man who's so one with his horse. The ancients thought that his body melted with the horse. The Sagittarius is a bit of the warrior too, and also too Sagittarius. That arrow, a guy out there named Paul LaViolette, he's a scientist. He talks about why the tail of the scorpion is pointing to the galactic center. The arrow of Sagittarius is pointing to the galactic center, and there's something with Ophiuchus that's also pointing to the galactic center. This is a very powerful thing here. This has something to do with some type of, and I think they say at the center of our galaxy is a black hole. I think that's what they say. So you might want to look that guy up, Paul LaViolette, and see what he says about the constellations and the zodiac and tarot cards. So when you say these things, when you look at your chart, this is what I'm saying. I think these charts, for some reason, because I'm just a Joe Schmo, but in the context of these charts, I'm seeing a message here that's beyond my reality, and I'm imparting that to you, and you're corroborating it. But yeah, there's something going on here with this dragon's tail in Gemini, and Mercury being in a cosmic constellation, Aquarius, which has a lot to do with ETs. You ain't, on a soul level, you really don't feel like I'm really from here. I'm from somewhere else. And then your north node's pointing, it's in the sign that's pointing to that galactic center. So and I'm pretty sure they say the center of our galaxy is a black hole. I think that does qualify as the dark side. I think the theory is light can't even escape a black hole. This is true. And another thing too, you have a dragon's tail in Gemini. Sometimes the dragon's tail can represent stress. When you try to communicate who you really are, that's what Gemini is about, communicating the way we're talking about now. I'm going to explain it to you like a teacher, like you're a student. That sometimes probably causes you some stress, because people probably thinking, what the hell is Kevin talking about? I don't get it. It's a little strange, you know? So, you know, that basically would mean with a North Node in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Neptune and Jupiter, I'm done teaching you folks. I'm going to create something. I don't know whether it's music, a film, something, you know, some kind of philosophy, write a book, something. I'm going to do something on a bigger level where I can just show it to you now. I'm done talking to you about it. I'm going to show you, let you hear, see, taste, touch what I'm talking about. That's it.
Right. Well, I think I told you my very first movie, as an extra, I was in a movie with Brad Pitt. I think I told you that, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. I was an extra, and I actually hung out with Brad Pitt for 2 days.
Wow.
Didn't I tell you that?
You told me that. I've been so out of the mainstream for so long. I heard of that movie, but I have no idea what it's about.
It's about a man aging backwards.
Oh, my Lord. That's good. That's a good movie for a guy like you to be in, man.
And in the scene I was in, I was one of the mourners at a funeral, and I was walking to the casket.
Wow.
And when I made my appearance on screen, then I'm the last. In that scene of the funeral, I'm the last person seen. Then it cuts to the other part of the movie. I'm the last thing you see in that major Oscar-winning movie. In the funeral scene, I'm the last mourner you seen before it cuts to another scene. I'm the last man in that funeral.
That's very cool, man. Very, very cool. Let me talk about some more stuff here, Kevin.
So while you're looking, when I was about 11, 12 years old, I was not asleep. I seen the Grim Reaper, but he didn't have a Skype. He was about 6'2". He came, appeared to me, and when he appeared, the sound you hear when you see the angel of death with a Grim Reaper is the same sound when you cut the TV on, that noise, that little whistling noise. Well, when the Grim Reaper came, I didn't know what the hell was going on, because all I knew is I thought my eyes were open, but anyway, my eyes opened, but I couldn't move. I was frozen, and I seen my bedroom. My brother was, of course, under my bunk. Couldn't see him, but I seen the mirror. I seen the bathroom light on. My parents' room door, my door was open, their door was open. So when the Grim Reaper left, it's like my eyes opened again, and it was the exact same thing. It was not a dream. And when he appeared, I wasn't scared. I kept looking into the darkness of the face of the Grim Reaper. I never went quite this deep when I told someone this, I'm telling you. When I was looking at the Grim Reaper, it was pitch black. And I wasn't scared. I was just looking at the dark face, and I was just staring at it. And then he wouldn't leave. And I'm like, then I started saying, Lord, I didn't know what to do. I wasn't scared. Like, well, it was almost, I was saying, what are you doing here? And I said, I'll follow with you in heaven. Hallelujah. Then he disappeared. I was about 12 years old. That is a true story. I'm not going to pay you $200 to BS myself on tape. That happened.
Oh, I believe, and as I said about 10 minutes ago in the reading, you've got Jupiter and Mars in Capricorn, and Capricorn rules death. Remember we talked about this? So when you tell me that's reinforcing.
He said Saturn rules death, right?
Yeah, and you've got your Jupiter and Mars in Capricorn, and Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. So, you know, this is what I said about 10 minutes ago. I didn't know it was specifically you saw the Grim Reaper himself, but when you told me this is reinforced in your chart. And you've got your Neptune in Ophiuchus, and Ophiuchus and Scorpio rule that side of life that ain't physical. So you definitely got a connection to this stuff, you know? And then another thing, too, when you look at these charts, the first house, that's what you are on the inside. That's where your sun's at. That's where your Venus is at. Your Chiron's there. That's that little circle with a K on top, getting that a little bit later. The seventh house is how you face the world. That's what people see. They see you as a Virgo. You face the world as a Virgo. And you've got your Uranus in Virgo. Uranus is the maverick. So on the inside, you're a Pisces. But it would take people, I know because I have your chart, I can see on the inside you're a Pisces. But you face the world as a Virgo. That's like me. On the inside, I'm a Libra. My sun's in Libra, but I face the world as an Aries, which is a little bit in your face. You know, I can hear myself on the Jordan Maxwell show. I got that Aryan attitude. Blah, 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 blah. It's kind of like combative a little bit. But on the inside, I'm a Libra. I love peace.
What do they see when they see me?
With you, with a Virgo, that just means extreme attention to detail. very fastidious about how you present things. And also, too, you have the planet Uranus in Virgo right there in the 7th house. So you're definitely a maverick, too. They just think, Kevin, because Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, so they're just thinking this guy, when you get to talking to him, he's functioning on a whole different level. He really ain't necessarily interested in going and having a cup of coffee with me and shooting the shit about the weather and engaging in some small talk. Kevin here, he's basically talking about he wants to transform my whole consciousness and the whole civilization on this planet. That's what they're going to kind of say. On a mundane level, they're going to see that Virgo inside of you. Just you're probably very picky about what you do. Virgo is very picky. It's very fastidious. Its symbol was the virgin, separating the wheat from the chaff. That's a painstaking process. It just means you're going to have a certain level of pickiness. But once they get to know you, though, they're going to know. Sun in Pisces, they're not going to think about it this way. They're going to feel it. Venus in Pisces, they're going to realize, man, Kevin's a pretty spiritual guy. This guy's pretty damn spiritual. He's talking about some stuff that's really deep. And if he's on your side, he's like one of the best friends you can ever have. Venus in Pisces. People with Venus in Pisces sometimes getting taken advantage of because of their compassion and kindness. And you got that Venus talking to your Pluto, which is in Comma Berenices, which is just right over Virgo. That makes you really intense too. You're just an intense dude. That's why I wrote one message to you called you Mr. Intensity. It's freaking true. You mean business. Does that make sense? That's like me. I'm an Aries. Aries, I'm a Libra on the inside. I like Libra, likes balance, beauty, diplomacy, harmony, and all that. But I face the world as an Aries. Aries means I can be a little combative at times. I'm not afraid of a spirited debate. But in the end, I'm ultimately trying to achieve like balance, justice, beauty, and harmony because my son's in Libra. So I don't understand the mechanism of how this stuff works, just like I don't understand the mechanism of why 2 + 2 = 4. I just know there's something to this stuff based on my observations.
Right.
It's almost like Hollywood's out there telling you, this is how it really works, folks. And they just put it out there publicly. They don't care. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. Now, jumping around to your chart some more. You have your Saturn in the 3rd house. The 3rd house rules the mind, how one speaks. So you have Saturn and Taurus in the horns of the bull. When Saturn's in the horns of the bull, anything in the horns of the bull, the nature of Taurus is pretty peaceful. Taurus is pretty mellow till you piss the bull off. Then when you piss the bull off, it becomes a raging monster that can't be stopped. Just think of those people running through the streets of Spain. You know what I mean? And the bull's like tossing them here and there like they're rag dolls. If you don't get impaled by a steer's horn. So, but the point being is you've got your Saturn in the 3rd house. Saturn sometimes teaches his lessons by taking something away. So if Saturn wants you to learn about oxygen, it'll give you a lung disease. And then you get a real strong appreciation for how important oxygen is. You feel the lack of it, therefore you understand the necessity of it, and then you go out and become the world's foremost authority on lung disease, and you find a cure, and you've overcome the Saturnian obstacle. Sometimes people say Saturn's a malefic planet. It afflicts you. No, it puts an obstacle, a challenge in front of you, and once you master it, you're the master now. You're 10 times stronger. You're 10 times more skillful than anyone. I'm saying this because you've got your Saturn in the 3rd house in the mind area. So it's very interesting you know a thing or two about Saturn because it's in your mental house, the mind area in the 3rd house in Taurus. And
not to mention the axial tilt of Saturn is 26.73.
Yeah, which is one hell of a coincidence because also too Taurus, the 2 rulers of Taurus, the dignified ruler of Taurus is Venus, which you have in the 1st house, and then the exalted ruler of Taurus is the Moon, which you have right next to your North Node in Sagittarius. And the ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter, which you have in Capricorn, which Saturn rules, which is in your 3rd house. So it's no wonder you've got some kind of knowledge of Saturn. And you know Jordan Maxwell talks a hell of a lot about Saturn, how important that planet is. You guys are beyond me on that. I'm learning through Jordan. But you've got Saturn in the 3rd house, and Taurus is also a fixed energy. So when you talk about Saturn, you ain't ever stopping talking about it because you're fixed on this. Fixed means it ain't changing. Taurus is a fixed energy. That's it. This is something that's a part of your focus. You're fixed on this. And this one's a bit of a mystery, you know. Now, another thing, too, what this is going to mean, though, Saturn being in your third house in Taurus, on a mundane level, Saturn likes to think strategically. Saturn does not like wasting a move, you know, because Saturn rules structure. Saturn is what rules the human body skeletal system. That's the foundation of everything. What Saturn deals with, Saturn builds things to last.
Oh, that's why the Grim Reaper is sometimes shown with the hood and the skeletal face. Because the Grim Reaper is the father of time, Chronos, Saturn, and since Saturn rules the skeleton, that's why it's artistically depicted. The Grim Reaper sometimes don't just have a black face, he has a skeletal face. Because that's Saturn. That's Chronos.
Exactly, and this probably had something to do with why you got some kind of relationship with the Grim Reaper. That being said, too, with Saturn builds, it builds the last, like the skeletal system. Somebody can die, the flesh and blood and everything decomposes. The bones might be around for hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean, there's churches in Czechoslovakia. There's some kind of cathedral that's built out of human bones, the whole damn thing. They last a long time. Point being, with Saturn deals with Saturn builds structures to last. Well, Saturn is the structuring principle behind the pyramids. You don't want to build a pyramid that's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. You don't want that. Okay? You want it done right. You want the mathematics done right. The point being.
Well, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was in the barber's chair here in Baton Rouge, which is the city I'm in right now, and I was in the barber's chair, and something came over me, and I kind of just laid back in the chair, and it became pitch black. Blacker than the blackest black you can imagine. And from my right side of my in black vision, I've seen an emerald green pyramid, and in the middle of that pyramid, I've seen an eye moving back and forth, left and right. And it came from my left side, came to the center of my vision. It was a brilliant green with the powdery, blackiest black background you could ever imagine. And then it went from the center of my vision sight in blackness to the left. So I seen a green pyramid with an eye in the middle of it about 3 years ago in the barbershop. I just and then I came out of it. I was not asleep.
Yeah. So you got this relationship with Saturn. So Saturn's that engineering building principle, and the thing is, since Saturn's building things to last, because those pyramids are still here, they're among the ancient wonders of the ancient world that are still here. You don't need any literature to know about them. You can go visit them. Saturn builds things to last, but to have things last, I mean, it means things have to be done right.
One more thing, and I won't interrupt you more. I took a cheek swab to have, because I'm black and I'm a child of slaves. I don't know who I am as far as genetics go, where I'm from in Africa. Well, anyway, I sent my cheek swab to IBM, National Geographic, and they had a project called the Genome Project, where they went to all the Aboriginal tribes around the world, Australia, New Zealand, Africa, South America, and they would trace your genes, and I had mine traced back to my bloodline of my fathers. And I got a graphical response from them on paper and a website, and my genes went back 50,000 years and sent it right into modern-day Egypt.
See? There's a connection to the pyramids here. Saturn in your third house and Taurus. That's my opinion, Kevin. You know, that's not surprising. So you're actually, strictly speaking, you're an ancient Egyptian. That's what you are, right?
According to what I read, according to National Geographic, it said it was like my genetic marker was P25. If it's P25, it's either Cameroon or Egypt.
Yeah, ancient Egyptian. That's a hell of a story right there when you start looking at a guy who wrote a book called The Historical Origins of Christianity by a black man who did music with Sun Ra named Walter Williams. You ought to check that book out.
I got all of Sun Ra's video on my cell phone. And Sun Ra said he was from the planet Saturn.
See? And you've got Saturn and Taurus. Taurus is ruled by Venus. Taurus has a lot to do with music, and your Venus is in Pisces. So, as I said, the stuff you're talking about, what this basically means, though, see, with your Saturn in the third house in Taurus, once again, the level, the things you're trying to communicate, I personally think with a Dragon's Tail and Gemini, which means communicating things, Saturn in the third house and Taurus, you got a real difficult time talking to most people about what you're about. That's my opinion. I think you might find it somewhat frustrating, and I think it's that Saturn and Taurus in the third house basically saying, you ain't going to be able to say what you got to say strictly with words. You're not going to be able to communicate it that way. It's going to require some music. It's going to require some vision. It might require film. It might require video. Because you're north.
It might require me to control the weather also.
Well, that's a whole other realm I'm not qualified to speak about. That's pretty deep stuff, you know. But I'm just saying, with the Saturn in the third house and Taurus, since Taurus has a lot to do with music, and your North Node's right there in Sagittarius, I personally think, man, some of the stuff you're talking about, it's going to involve music and video. You're not going to necessarily be able to go out there and write this stuff down in a book, because if you try to write it in a Gemini fashion and explain it like I'm talking now, linearly, analytically, it's not. I think you're going to be frustrated. It's going to take something like like a Sun Ra video, man, like some kind of spaceship from ancient Egypt flying out to Saturn. You show that and you write the music for the video. Then people will understand on an intuitive level, a soul level, what you're trying to say. You know?
Oh, one more thing I keep forgetting. Whenever I truly desire to see UFOs, I see them. Matter of fact, I took my children out one night. I didn't tell them what we were going to do. And about 20 UFOs appeared in Baton Rouge by the Mississippi River. When I was driving my truck near Ohio, a UFO came within about 50 feet of my truck window, banked to the left and went back behind a hill. UFO has flown side by side with me in tandem going down the road. I don't tell people that, but since you mentioned UFO, I just thought I'd tell you. That happened. Whenever I want to see one, they appear. There's a film on YouTube with Jordan Maxwell looking at UFOs. Now, if you get that film with Jordan Maxwell pointing to the sky and looking at something, whenever I want to see something like that, whenever I truly desire it, I mean, day or night, I see them. What Jordan Maxwell happenstance ran into, I see them basically at will.
As I said, you have your Mercury in Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus, which rules ETs, and you've got a Dragon's Tail in Gemini. I think I said this about 20 minutes ago, that you ain't from here. You might be in a genetic construction called your body that originated from this earth, but I don't think the rest of you's from here. So none of this surprises me looking at your chart. You got a connection to this, you know? But they're here to basically, I mean, you're kind of here like to tell people, hey, people, you got to start looking. There's like some cosmic laws and stuff you people need to be aware of. There's a whole other galactic philosophy. You're going to have to get beyond your little provincial tribalism and all that stuff and start looking at the big picture here. Another thing, too, about Saturn's exalted in Libra. Saturn has a lot to do with judges and kings. Has a lot to do with the law, you know?
Yeah, and when I was 29... which is my Saturnian first birthday. That was the first year of my law practice. My first year of law ended on my 29th birthday. And which means that I finished law school, which means that after you practice law, for about a year you qualify to run for a judge or be appointed as judge. That happened to me at 29. And I got my law license when September 11th hit. When September 11th hit, about a week later I walked across the bar after September 11th.
Yeah, Saturn in that third house, you know. But Saturn, see, it's not enough. I mean, Saturn, and another thing too, Jupiter in astrology, Jupiter represents the prince, Saturn represents the king. Because it's not enough just to be a king and rule by might. You've got to rule by right too. Now, might's supposed to enforce right, but you've got to, as a king, you've got to rule by right. You know, which means having the law on your side. So.
Yeah, well, when I was on the radio in Detroit in October and November last year, I didn't want to say it, but I kind of seen it in the scripture. I was hoping somebody would come in and argue with me, But I told the people on Detroit radio on the air, I said, I'm the Son of Man, who is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. I said that on the radio publicly.
As I said, you're not from here, and you got a North Node in Sagittarius in the 10th house. So, you're tapped into. Let me start looking at the planetary aspects, how these things are speaking together.
Of course, Saturn, among the planets, as you know, Joe, Saturn is the Lord of the Rings. And Saturn means Kevin, and Kevin and Farsi is Saturn. So it says Kevin is the Lord of the Rings, or the King. Or the King of the Rings.
When you start looking at, now, and I'm looking at these color charts now, how the planets are speaking to each other, your Saturn talks to your Mercury, and you've got 2 Earth charts and 2 Sun charts. Most people, when they're talking about the stars, they're only talking about how the planets speak horizontally on the ecliptic. But they also speak above and below the ecliptic vertically, so you've got to look at that. That's another 25% of the information. Then you have to look at how the planets speak from the vantage point of the sun, because your life energy is coming from the sun. So, when you look at your planetary aspects in the Earth chart, your Mercury makes a square to Saturn. So you've got Mercury, which rules the intellect, talking to a Saturn in the 3rd house of the intellect, and it's making a square. So on a mundane level, what that means, when Mercury talks to Saturn, Mercury works very well with Saturn. Mercury talking to Saturn, since Saturn is a structuring engineering principle, Saturn gives these type of people a certain amount of rigor and precision in their thinking. It's great for a chess player, for an engineer. You think like that. You can think very precisely and very rigorously, more so than the average bear. So, but then again, taking it to some of the things you've said, Mercury talking to Saturn, is it any wonder why you've got this relationship with Saturn? It's reflected in your stars. And then your North Node's in Sagittarius, but your Saturn makes a 150-degree angle to that North Node in Sagittarius. And that North Node is the destiny of the chart in this particular incarnation. And your Saturn's making a 150-degree angle, which is known as a quincunx or an inconjunction. That's an enhancement angle. That's a very powerful, good angle. So part of your destiny is wrapped up with this planet called Saturn. So you're supposed to do something with Saturn where you're building something. You're bringing it into this material reality because you have your Saturn and Taurus in the 3rd house. Taurus has to do with something you can taste, touch, see, smell, or hear. So you're supposed to, my opinion, this is just my opinion, I could be completely wrong. You're the ultimate authority. You're living a life. I'm looking at the map. But you're supposed to do something with Saturn in this 3rd house where you're meant to communicate or show the vision about there's something to this planet Saturn you folks need to look at.
Well, Jordan Maxwell pointed that out. Remember, in Mecca, Jordan called the pilgrimage of the Hajj the cult of Saturn. And in my video, Here is Wisdom, I put Jordan Maxwell's teaching, and I kind of expounded on it, because the people, when they go to Mecca, Arabia, they make 7 circles or 7 rings around the planet Saturn, and then they kiss the reddish black stone inside the Kaaba. Well, my skin is reddish black. I'm not a dark-skinned black man. I'm a brown-skinned. Actually, if you look at me closely, my skin is reddish brown, like that stone inside the Kaaba in Mecca, or 7. So, actually, when you make 7 circles around the Kaaba, since numerologically speaking, Kevin means 7. So when they make 7 circles around the Kaaba and kiss the stone, they make 7 circles around the Kaaba and kiss me. Or they kiss the ring. Because they made 7 rings around me.
Well, look, from a conventional point of view, if we weren't looking at these stars, you and I speaking this way to anybody not initiated, so to speak, into this language would think you and I are absolutely insane. All right? But when you start looking at it in the context of these stars, there's a lot to what you're saying. A lot. And also, too, you have your Mars in Capricorn, which Saturn rules. When you look at how your planets speak vertically, your Saturn makes a contraparallel to Mars. So Saturn is very, very, very emphasized in your chart. And by virtue of the fact it's talking to your North Node, making a 150-degree angle, and then that means it's making a 30-degree angle to your south node. You're supposed to be dealing with Saturn. So, and as I said, I'm just trying to unravel it in my mind now as we speak, but once again, Saturn is the king. That's like Jupiter's the prince, and sometimes the prince challenges the authority of the king, but in the end, the king's the king. And that's that. And Saturn has a lot to do with the law. So, your destiny...
And I'm a lawyer.
Yeah, it's kind of uncanny. It's kind of uncanny. So...
Like the X-Men, the uncanny X-Men, I think I would be Professor X.
Is that a movie you're talking about? X-Men?
Yeah, the movie and the comic book.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've been, the stuff man, you and me, let me take this off the recording for a second, Kevin. Hold on. I'm recording again, but for some reason, yeah, you're meant to know the law. But that might just be your chart, your functional, you're looking at cosmic stuff, man. You're just not dealing with Saturnian law on this planet. You're dealing with Saturnian law in terms of like the galaxy or something like that. It has to do with your North Node in Sagittarius. This whole thing with Sun Ra and
are you recording?
I'm recording now, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, go ahead.
So this whole thing of you looking at Sun Ra, looking at ancient Egypt, this looking very deeply at Saturn, feeling a connection to it, it's very much a part of your chart. Very much a part of your chart. So you're not off base. It's actually part of your destiny because your Saturn's making a 150-degree angle to your dragon head. You got the so
on YouTube, I made when I was making the movie, I projected out to all. I have right now I got 700 subscribers or somewhere in there. Anyway, when I put out that I said I'm the last dragon.
Yeah, well,
that was years before we even talked.
Well, and another thing too, when I go look at your sun chart, going a little bit off topic here, but when I go look at your sun chart talking about Saturn, your Mercury also talks to Saturn vertically in your sun chart. So once again, you think very precisely. It's like when you talk about these things, you can pull a lot of supporting evidence and reasons why you're saying what you're saying. It's not just like you're just like some flaky airhead who's out in space just rambling about Saturn. You've got very precise reasons. This is why I'm telling you about Saturn. Hey, Kevin, you know this far better than me. I'm kind of stepping into your reality. It's a strange place for me, but I see it reinforced in your chart. You've got the facts on this. Now, when you look at your sun chart too, your Saturn talks to your Neptune vertically. And your Neptune in the Earth chart's an Ophiuchus, and Neptune's the dignified co-ruler of your North Node Sagittarius. So, Neptune has to do with the spiritual side of life. That's like that thing that's like crossing the veil from this realm into another realm. So, you kind of understand some of the principles of this. You just feel it in your soul, man. Anybody else talking about Saturn this way, you're talking this way to the guy on the street, they're just going to think like, whoa, man, this dude ain't from here. He's out there. But it's in your chart. Now, also, too, in your sun chart, your Saturn trines your Uranus. And once again, Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, and your Saturn makes a 120-degree angle to that. So what that means is, you want to talk about UFOs? I mean, you've got a connection to that. Your Saturn talks to Uranus, so you sort of understand some of the laws of this stuff, because Saturn's the laws, the engineering principles, Uranus is a higher mentality. So another thing, too, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, you're taking the steps in a concrete fashion to, bring in a higher mentality. Like, you come here, you visit this stuff, you're in a whole nother realm of thinking, and I'm going to build this thing. Saturn talking to Uranus. Uranus being the higher mentality. Saturn taking the steps to build this. So,
it's interesting. You keep talking about engineering. When I went to college, I majored in mechanical engineering. And during my junior year, I went to physics because engineering was just too easy of a field. So I had to get something more challenging. That's why I switched to physics, because engineering was really too simple.
Your Mercury talks to Saturn in your Sun and your Earth chart. You think like an engineer, and you've got Saturn and Taurus in the third house. So this is why you're a chess player. This is why your thinking has precision and it has rigor. That's it. That's the mundane interpretation of that. But then again, it goes into the more esoteric things, why you have this connection to the planet Saturn. And Saturn rules death. And Jordan Maxwell talks about Saturn a lot. He talks about how important this is. But I know he knows a lot more than he's putting out there publicly. I don't know what it is yet. Maybe when you two connect, you'll really get deep into it. You know? So I'm just making the point. When you talk about Saturn, this is not just you with just some weird fetish. This is like very emphasized in your chart, and it's a big part of who you are. Also, too, when you look at your sun chart, your Saturn opposes your Mars. So there's Saturn talking to Mars again. Now, another thing, too, when people have their Mars talking to Saturn, sometimes Mars wants to go, 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 go. And Saturn says, not so fast. Because that's Saturn. Saturn likes everything done perfectly because Saturn's building things to last. And if you're boring your way through a mountain and your mathematics are not precise and rigorous, you're going to have a problem with your tunnel. You know, I mean, little errors, you know that from studying engineering, little errors add up over the distance. The point is it makes Saturn very picky. So people who have their Saturn talking to the Mars, in my opinion, because Mars is just the energy of assertion, it makes you do what you want to do, that's Saturn saying, yeah, you're going to do what you're going to do, but you ain't doing anything in this life half-ass. You're not doing it. You're going to do it right. Whatever discipline it takes to do it right, you're going to do it right. And if you don't, I'm just going to slow you down, keep whacking you on the knuckles like your granddad till you do it right. That's it. Now, looking at this sun chart too, when you look at the Earth chart, the sun represents the person. When you look at the sun charts, when you look at the sun charts, the Earth represents the person and the relationship that person has with everyone else on the Earth. When you look at your sun chart, your Pluto conjuncts the Earth. And once again, Pluto is just raw power. It's the higher octave of Mars. So Mars is just going out getting what you want, being assertive, being dominant. Pluto is like being the Godfather. Pluto's like, I don't care what the judge says, I want him dead, so get me a death sentence. That's it. And whatever you got to pay the judge to say that, have the judge render that sentence, or he's dead too. See, Pluto don't reason. Pluto does not reason. Pluto dictates. So you've got your Pluto talking to your Earth in your sun chart, and this is the kind of relationship you're going to have with everyone on the Earth. When Kevin steps on the scene, he means business. He's going to be talking about some stuff, because also, too, Pluto, anything Pluto touches, it transforms. If something's dead, Pluto touches it, it becomes alive. If something's alive, Pluto touches it, it dies. It's just the ultimate power in transformation. So I would say, if you're Pluto talking to your Earth, people come in contact with you, and I'm not saying this is a blessing or a burden, it just is what it is in my interpretation, but they're going to hear some stuff, like they're going to walk away just thinking like, I ain't ever, after dealing with Kevin, heard anything quite like this shit. And it's hard to argue with you because your Saturn talks to your Mercury, so you can rebut their arguments with very precise facts and analysis. So then they can't just conclude he's just plumb off his rocker. It's like, no, there's a method to the madness here, you know, and it's starting to make sense to me. So, right? But
that's funny.
Is this what you're experiencing with your life? Is this how it basically rolls with you?
Yeah, in a way, but the way you said it, I just found it insane. That was funny. That makes sense to me.
When you look at your sun chart too, you have your Jupiter contra parallel your Uranus. Jupiter means the Lord of luck, expansion, and growth. Uranus, one of another functions of Uranus means universality. Jupiter means big. Uranus means universality. When you combine big Jupiter with Uranus universality, that means big universality. That's another phrase for saying famous. People who have Jupiter talking to Uranus, they have the potential to be somewhat well known. Now you're a little too deep to want celebrity for celebrity's sake, but you do have a North Node in Sagittarius, which Jupiter rules, and you have your Jupiter talking to Uranus. You do have the potential that some of the stuff you're saying is going to catch some people's attention. You know what I mean? But I think what you got to realize, if I leave you with anything, and Joey D's putting his ass somewhat on the line, you got a Dragon's Tail in Gemini. The real message you're supposed to communicate, it's going to be awfully frustrating trying to communicate it the way Jordan Maxwell does. Jordan Maxwell has a North Node in Virgo, which means he can sit there like an engineer and explain, this comes from this means this means that. You have a Dragon's Tail in Gemini. Yours is the tail. His is the head. His is in Virgo, which is ruled by Virgo. He has a Dragon's Head in Virgo, which is ruled by Gemini. You have a Dragon's Tail, which is ruled by Mercury. You want to explain things like that too, but where your North Node is in Sagittarius, that's intuitive knowing. If you actually try to do what Maxwell does and try to explain things in a Gemini fashion like a teacher, I don't think your real message is going to get across. You, with the North Node in Sagittarius, it's like, I'm going to drop some shit on you crazier than Jimi Hendrix with the shit that was coming out of his guitar. That's my opinion of where you really need to be operating, because you can think like an engineer, you can talk very articulately. Your Mercury talks to Saturn. But what you're really here to do is basically put together a movie or something, some kind of video or whatever you're doing now with the website, and just whatever it is, wherever your intuition leads you. You can't necessarily think about this stuff too much. You know, wherever it leads you, the vision. You're here to drop the vision. It's beyond just normal communication. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what I see in your chart, man. You're here like the...
Well, I kind of, you know, funny to mention that. I kind of had in the back of my mind, you know, maybe I need to write or be in a movie to get this message. I actually had those thoughts.
But I'm here to tell you, in your chart, that's where I think you're supposed to go with this. Like, people are going to be like, we don't know what the fuck these movies are about, but this shit is just, this is cool. We've never seen anything like this, because they're just going to feel it. This guy ain't just making movies to entertain you. This ain't about boy meets girl, boy meets penis. No, this ain't a love story. We're talking about something here that, it's like Sun Ra. It's just, you know, what the hell is he really talking about? You know what I mean? It's deep stuff, man. You're getting into the history of humanity. You're getting into a cosmic consciousness, which gets into spirituality. And, you know, why are we living in a third-rate version of reality? And why do we accept that? You know? It gets into good stuff. Now, you also have your Saturn contra-parallel your Neptune. Neptune has a lot to do with dreams, vision, artistic vision. Your Saturn's here, and your Saturn's in Taurus, you're here to, like, take whatever steps, concrete steps it is to build this thing, to give birth to it in this realm for some reason. I don't know. You know better than I do, but maybe the people of Earth need to hear this. Who knows? You know? Crazy stuff, man, when you start seeing what you're really about and what's really going on. You know, you start wondering now, what the hell?
I'm sorry.
I'm telling you, man. And another thing, too, about these stars, once you embrace who you really are, I'm of the opinion that you now got to be the hero. You're going to have to labor through the 12 labors of Hercules, because now you're going to have to be who you really are. And that doesn't always translate into material success. The kind of movies you're talking about, kind of stuff you might have to do, and maybe it won't even be a movie, maybe it'll be something else. Could be music, could be an album, who knows what, you could be poetry, I don't know how what you're going to choose to do. You might not do anything, it's up to you. You're in the driver's seat. But something like that, that's financially risky. You know what I mean? It's financially risky, but on the soul level, you're probably going to be a little happier. You know, that's like myself. Let me take this off the recording. I don't want to put too much of my personal stuff on here. I'm just telling you, man, I'm here just with these stars just to tell you, you know, the stuff you're talking about, there's a reason. And it's not in the realm of reason of conventional experience. You know, so I'm here to say, well, you talk about Saturn, you talk about this, you talk about seeing the Grim Reaper, embrace that, because that's reflected in your chart. You know? This is not, you're not functioning in the normal realm of, like, normal bounds of perception. That's just not where you're at. And also, too, you talk about that dark side infinity. You got something going on, North Node and Sagittarius. That Sagittarius arrow points to the galactic center, and they say there's a black hole there. That qualifies as being pretty damn dark when light can't escape from it. Black hole absorbs
everything. So it is what we call loosely put. It's interesting that I would choose that name, Dark Side Infinity. Actually, both those emails are mine. Dark Side Infinity 666 and Dark Side Infinity 888 is my other one.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I know you know, though, about the philosophical implications of numbers. To you, numbers aren't just numbers.
Oh, they're holy. I don't mean holy like we're holes. I mean holy like as a sacred.
Yeah, because you got that engineering mind and you're very spiritual. Another thing about you, too, when you look at your Earth chart, your Sun makes a trine to your Neptune in the 9th house. So,
did you got the recording on?
I'm recording now. And
okay, great.
So your Sun talking to your Neptune, once again, your basic style, and your Neptune's in Ophiuchus, you are like the shaman. That's where you're supposed to be. Your Sun talking to Neptune. And Neptune rules music, too. Neptune rules film. Neptune rules painting. Neptune rules poetry. That's where...
Well, of course, you're not right.
Your Sun talks to Neptune. So all these things with music, all this stuff, I'm telling you, man, this is not a hobby for you. This is an integral part of who you are. You have to be... You're your own brand, man. You're your own, I don't want to, you're beyond entertainment, but you're like your own media company. You've got to do these things. Your Mars talks to that Neptune. It makes a parallel, which means vertically they're speaking together. Mars is the energy of the chart. It's the energy of assertion. Your Mars talks to that Neptune. So you need to express yourself, your energy, in a Neptunian fashion. The more you go into Neptune, express these things artistically, films, videos, all this stuff. That kind of stuff, I don't even worry about the money when I do that kind of stuff. I just do it for the artistic expression. If it ever comes around, I develop something that's copyrightable, and actually somebody wants to license, so be it. Maybe I'll make some money at it. But my real inspiration is, it's just an organic compulsion. I've got to do these things. It's the same thing with you.
It's funny that you say Neptune is dealing with music, because if you look at the word Neptune, it's T-U-N-E, tune.
Exactly.
So Neptune, sorry?
Exactly.
And check this out. Well, if I gotta get in tune with my Neptune, then I gotta take the Nep and reverse it and pin the tune. So it's pinning the tune with Neptune.
I love that. I love it, man. And also, too, when you look at the vertical side of your Earth chart, your Jupiter makes a parallel to Neptune. And those two things rule your North Node in Sagittarius. So, in some ways, man, I'm not kidding you. This might sound crazy, man, but you're like a cosmic fucking gypsy, man. You're meant to tap into something galactic. You're not necessarily constrained to these normal boundaries, But that's not the kind of thing you can communicate in a book that's very dry and factual. That's the type of thing you communicate through poetry, words. I mean, you're the kind of guy who can make a movie. You're doing the music, you're writing the dialogue, and you're behind the director's chair, and you're acting in the damn thing. To convey your message. And also, too, when people have their Jupiter talking to Neptune, these type of people, my opinion, my interpretation, Jupiter talking to Neptune, these are people who understand the grandeur of life. They've got a romantic notion of life. And I don't mean boy-girl romance. I mean romantic as a 19th century literary movement, man. The symphonies of Beethoven. It's big and wild, and it's magnificent. People with Jupiter talking to Neptune.
And I was born in Detroit, which is known as the Renaissance City.
See? So, you're coming in... Let me talk about some other things too. Well, your Venus is exalted in Pisces, but that Venus of yours talks to your moon in Sagittarius. Venus has a lot to do with art and music. Venus is the ruler of Taurus, where you have your Saturn. So you got something hardcore to say and revolutionary, because you face the world with Uranus in the 7th house, Virgo. You're here to clean some stuff up too, and all this dark side infinity, talking about the dark before the light, all this stuff, very much a part of your chart. And this is not just idle chatter and fantasy and a fetish on your part. In some deeper level, it's a real strong part of who you are. That's what I'm getting, Kevin. You know it better than I do. You know, I'm stepping into your reality, and I haven't been in this reality for 45 years. I've been in my reality, which is functioning on a little more down-earth level.
Capacity.
Exactly. And see, another thing about you, too, your sun squares your moon. Your moon's in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Neptune and Jupiter, and you've got the sun in Pisces. So once again, you know, this whole Piscean thing, Sagittarian thing, there's all this Jupiterian, Neptunian connotations. You know, I mean, you are not all here, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. You see beyond just the normal boundaries. That's why you can say something like, I think I really can fly, and I can make that door open. You honestly believe that. You know, it's part of your chart. It's part of who you are. So, I tell you what, this is going to make some cool-ass songs if you're going to write some. I think they're speaking together. Now,
are you recording again?
I'm recording again. One thing about you, when we look at your Venus in Pisces, your Venus makes an opposition to your Pluto. You've got your Pluto in Comma Berenices. The interesting thing about Pluto being in Comma Berenices, that's a constellation just above Virgo. That's a generational thing. People born with Pluto in Comma Berenices, that's like that Pink Floyd Jimi Hendrix generation, where things got a little psychedelic. And it wasn't in Comma Berenices very long. Then it would kind of just go up and down into Virgo, then move its way into Libra. But there was a little period of time, because Comma Berenices is a little mini constellation, so to speak, that Pluto was in it. That's where yours was at. So you're part of that generation that was like that. It's just think Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, and some of Hendrix's tunes that are out there. I mean, Hendrix has a lot of tunes where he's singing about UFOs. You know? But anyway, so going back to your chart, so looking at your chart, now we talk about your sun being in Pisces. Your sun makes a trine to your Neptune. That Neptune talks to your Jupiter, and that Jupiter talks right back to your sun, meaning all those things are working in synchronicity. So you just like super Jupiter, there's another one, super Jupiter, super Neptune, and super Pisces. You ain't in this realm. Okay? Then your north nodes, when you look at the vertical chart, that's those colored charts I sent you, it has the hexagram in the middle. Your north nodes, the 22.8, at an extremely high latitude, as is your moon in Sagittarius. So when things are at that high of a latitude, they're very powerful in and of themselves. So your north node's in the 10th house, public standing, career, and eminence. I mean, this type of chart, you must be feeling like, I got some kind of destiny. My name is going to be known. Do you feel this way? Normally when somebody has this, you know, like, it's not about ego. It's not about feeling better than anybody. You just know, like, I got something to say that's going to blow people's mind, and I know I'm going to be known. I just know I am. That's it. Do you feel that way? This is what the stars tell me.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
Okay, now, another thing, too, which also at a very high vertical angle is, of course, take a guess, Saturn. Saturn's at another very high latitude. So I get this particular chart come from a group of astrologers known the Magi astrologers. They say, even if the planet's not talking to anything, or when it talks to stuff, it makes the power even stronger. But even if it's not talking to anything, by virtue of the fact the planet is at a very high latitude, it gives it a lot of power. So your Saturn's at a very high latitude. So this thing with Saturn it's just a theme that's very much so emphasized in your chart, meaning, you know, you already know this. But I'm saying, you're meant to explore this. This is what you're about. You're about Saturn for some reason. So...
Hey, Joe, you mentioned the Magi.
Yeah, the Magi, you can check them out. There's a group of people, they call themselves the Magi astrologers.
I know, but I want to tell you something. Now, if you're talking about the Magi, you understand, then you know about Zoroaster.
I know a little bit about Zoroaster, and I know the Magi.
Well, Zoroaster was the Persian prophet that believed in monotheism, one God, Mazda.
Oh, okay.
But what I want to tell you with concern of Zoroaster and the Magi, the Zoroaster was a very early ancient Persian prophet.
Interesting.
But the most interesting thing is Zoroaster, the prophet, his birthday is on March 26th.
Yeah. Well,
look it up.
I believe you. I believe you.
When you mentioned the Magi, I forgot. Well, it just came to mind that prophet Zoroaster, his birthday is celebrated on March 26th.
And you, with Saturn, with Saturn being so emphasized in your chart, you're looking way into the past too. You're dealing with the ancient stuff. But your Saturn in your sun chart also talks to your Uranus, so you're taking the past and you're applying these things from antiquity to the future too. So you're looking at some old stuff. So, yeah, it just comes down to, man, you're just a deep dude, man. You know what I mean? I don't think you have, like, normal, conventional friends. They can't deal with you. It's just like, this guy's out there, man. That's it. You know? That's it. That's a compliment. That's not an insult, but it's like, you just ain't got time for small talk and bullshit. You got too much going on for that. You know? Now, another thing, too, about you, you have your Venus opposing your Pluto. Your Pluto makes a trine to your Mars, and that Mars is making a sextile right back to that Venus, meaning your Venus, your Pluto, and your Mars are all working together. This means you, because of the power of Pluto, you are one intense dude. And when Mars talks to Pluto, Pluto's the higher octave of Mars. Mars is energy, it's assertion, it's dominance. Mars talking to Pluto. When you want to do something, you are going to do it. That's it. Period. That's power. That's indomitable will. That's drive. That's ambition. Okay? You've got that. Another thing you've got a bit of a T-square here. You've got Venus opposing your Pluto, and your Pluto's making a square to your Moon. Your Moon's making a square to your Venus. So, and your Moon's in your 10th house of Sagittarius. What this basically means is you know you can't do anything conventional in your life, like just be a mere lawyer, be a mere mechanical engineer, be a mere physicist. That's not going to work, Kevin, what I see in your chart, because of where your Moon is in your North Node, and you've got this T-square. If you do not follow the destiny of bringing whatever this vision you're going to bring to this planet, nothing in your life's going to work smoothly. And you know, you tell me if I'm right, but that's a T-square, and the T-square's focal point is on the Moon. So it's Venus opposing Pluto, which means those two are like a seesaw, and every time you try to get them in balance, this square from the Moon in Sagittarius, where your North Node is, just upsets the fine, fragile balance you just achieved with your life, and everything goes to shit. I mean, everything just goes a little haywire, because that North Node with the Moon in Sagittarius in that 10th house is saying you are never, ever, ever, never, ever, as long as you're in this body, you ain't ever going to have peace unless you keep going into this Sagittarian, esoteric, arcana, crazy-ass vision thing you've got beyond the normal bounds of perception. That's what I see here, Kevin. That's a strong point of your chart. Do you agree with that?
I can't disagree. That's for certain.
See, this right here, if you basically just tried to make what I see in your chart a hobby, like every now and then I'll play around on YouTube and put out a message or something like that, you're going to go insane. That's it. Your whole... That's it. It ain't going to last very long. It ain't going to last very long. You know, it has to do with this T-square where the Moon is, and your Moon's next to your North Node in Sagittarius. And that Moon is instinctual. So you can't... How to put this? There's just no balance, man. It's just a one-way street. That's it. You're like on the momentum's set, and there's no stopping the trajectory, man. I'm going right to the heart of the galaxy, and that is it. I don't care if it's a black hole, light ain't escaping. I'm going there. That's it. Period. Bye. I don't know what this means, man. I just know what the stars say. I don't know the specific facts, how this is actually on a day-to-day basis, minute-by-minute basis, how this is manifesting in your life. But this is here, man. This is here, you know? So, let me look at something else here. This is talking, and the moon's talking to the sun. Whew. Man, you might as well just forget it, man. You ain't doing anything conventional with this life. It's not happening. It's not happening for long. What happened with being a lawyer? Most people, when they decide to be a lawyer, I'm just saying, I just think you, like you said, you did it for a while. Now you're not doing that anymore. It's probably because, anybody else studying to be a lawyer, they're going to practice law. That's what they're going to do. They're going to be a lawyer till the day they retire, till the day they die. Not you. That's too small. That's too constraining. Even though you have a North Node in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius has a lot to do with the law. But that type of law, like on a family law or divorce law or civil law, you're dealing more with cosmic law. That's a little too mundane and petty for a guy like you. The topics you're dealing with, that's going to drive you insane, dealing with that stuff. That's what's going to drive you nuts after a while. Is that true? Is that why you gave it up?
Yeah, I ended up in a mental hospital after practicing law.
See?
It literally drove me insane.
Now you know, I just said that, and I'm not saying it's any reflection of my ability. This is what happens with these stars. A mere mortal like me can say, if you ain't doing what you're put here to do on this earth, your whole life's going to go to crap. I just said that, put it on a recording, and it's all going to be crazy. That's it. I said that. Now you're telling me you try to do the law, which is what the stars just said, and you went to a mental institution. And that's because you're trying to escape this reality, and you got to do this North Node and Sagittarius. You got no choice, man, with this T-square. You got no choice except to be who you are. It's like you're like the prophets they talk about in the Bible. And he says to Jeremiah, I don't care if you're going to get sawed in half by the people. I want you to go down there and prophesize my message to them. That's it. And that's it.
That's interesting you should say that, because when I was talking to Jordan, he kind of hinted this to me. He didn't come out and say it, but the way it came to me from what he was, George Maxwell is no dummy.
No. He plays dumb sometimes. I've got his chart. He plays dumb and he acts dumb sometimes, but he's actually very intelligent.
Well, what he said a disciple that's the root word of discipline. That's someone who studies something. He said an apostle is like, he said, imagine you in the army and there's 100 men and the general calls you out. All the other 99, they don't like you because, you just been picked by the general. You've been called out. He said, that's an apostle. And he kind of, I don't want to misinterpret him, so I'm going to say what I believe he was communicating to me. This is what I got from it. He said, he said God or the universe or divine power is in control of my life. And you've been called out. Jordan Maxwell told me that.
Well, I think that's a little bit reflected in this chart when you see Pluto squaring your moon. And that moon also squares your Venus, and that Venus is opposing that Pluto. The moon's so instinctual that if you, in your chart, if you do not honor what you were put here to do, and you can't, it's even beyond your rational conscious mind. If you don't do that, you will go fucking insane. Everything will fall apart. You got no choice. You got no choice. I know it sounds harsh. I'm not a sociologist. I'm not a psychologist. I got to be careful what I say to people. I have no training in those fields. Okay? And we're talking about very important stuff about your life. I'm not even trained in psychotherapy. I'm just a Joe Schmo who stumbled into this stuff. But I'm telling you, this T-square with this moon... You got to embrace your destiny, man. And you know that if you don't do it, you're just obsessed and you're compelled by it. And that is that. That's it. That's it. Enough said.
Wow.
So well, I'm going to get this recorded.
I need to tell you something.
Sure.
Saturday, about which is about, 4 days after my 40th birthday and the day before Easter. I wasn't really even regarding the time that I did it. I put on my forehead a tattoo. I have a Buddhist swastika on my forehead now, tattooed to my forehead in black, and in red I have the Star of David on my forehead. It's a tattoo. My girlfriend has went crazy. She thinks I lost my mind. But I have the Buddhist swastika, which means, according to the Tao Te Ching, that means 10,000 things, or the universe. And in the middle of the swastika on my tattoo is basically what's on the North Pole of Saturn, which is the Star of David, or that hexagon, or what's in Mecca, the cube. That's what's on my forehead now. I have the Buddhist swastika, and Buddha means enlightened one, and also have the Star of David inside of the swastika, tattooed to my forehead.
And your Saturn talks to your North Node in Sagittarius, which is the North Node of the Moon, and I would personally think you feel very good about this. You don't give a damn what your girlfriend thinks, or your fiance. You don't care. Because you know, as crazy as this sounds, because you got a North Node Sag, which is ruled by Jupiter, co-ruled by Neptune, you don't give a fuck if anybody thinks it's crazy. It makes you feel good. That is that. That's that.
Right.
You got no insecurities about that whatsoever.
Right.
So, you don't give a damn. Because you know, this is just Pluto talking to your moon, and that moon, Pluto does not reason. Pluto dictates. Your Pluto's in Common Berenices above Virgo, but it always wants to go to its polarity point, which is Pisces. You trying to step outside the bounds of this normal reality. That's what you're doing. Now, the closest I can get to that is doing my music. Film sometimes gets you there. You might do some other things. Hey, a lot of times people who don't understand their chart with all this Piscean energy like you have, they become drug addicts. Or they become alcoholics because they're trying to transcend this reality. But they're not aware. I heard a doctor say, this famous doctor said, some of my favorite patients are heroin addicts. I think I know why he said that, because he's like, I like these people. They're spiritual. Their spirituality's warped. They got channeled in the wrong direction, but they are making the attempt to transcend this reality. Now, you're better off doing it in a healthy fashion, doing your movies, doing your poetry, doing your music. But sometimes people are not aware of their stars, that they have a strong Neptunian nature, and they just want to transcend the constraints of this reality. So they turn to drugs. They love being high, So you got a lot of that. You got a lot of that, but I think you're doing it. You got your Mercury talking to Saturn. You might be a little too smart to get down that path too far, So, all right, Kevin. This has been about 2 hours. I'm going to send this off to you. Your chart's so out there that, believe me, I didn't get it all. I'm not that good. Your chart's the kind of chart I got to let this swim around in my brain for a while, just in the subconscious, while my brain makes the neural connections, and then one day more insights will pop up. But we got a lot of what you're about. You can get it all. I'm not that presumptuous, but we got a lot of what's going on here, But some of this stuff is just so deep that you really have to spend a lot of time thinking about this, Same thing with me. I gotta let it go through my conscience. But I'm just saying, you ain't wasting your time talking about Saturn and talking about all these things. And like I said, some of the stuff you're going to say, people are going to think this guy is plumb out of his fucking mind. Good. Your North Node in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. It's like when you go on the radio in Detroit talking about I'm the son of man. There are some people going to think this boy done plumb lost it. But to you, you're just like, nope, plain as day to me. It's bloody obvious. So you figure out what I'm trying to tell you. You figure it out. I got a message for you. So something's going on like this. Another thing, too, Sagittarius. Sagittarius has a lot to do with preachers and people going around like the prophets and such. And sometimes when you read interpretations of that, I'm not I don't want to bring it down to the level of religion, because I think there's a distinction between religion and reality. I mean, religion and spirituality, I meant to say. But, this is just...
Well, let me ask you this. George Maxwell mentioned that the methodology that you're talking about has something to do with what actually Nostradamus was doing. Could you comment on that?
Yeah. The reason he's saying that is because I learned the basics of this from a guy named Louis Torrey. You can look him up. He's another astrologer. He was a friend of Jordan. He's my friend. He since moved to Arizona. He was in San Diego. But Louis Torrey is a Frenchman from the southern region of France called Provence, which is where Nostradamus was from. And Louis said he went to the archives and looked at the work of Nostradamus. Louis used to do astrology the conventional way. Then he went there, and I guess he could understand that the southern French dialect, when Nostradamus was alive in the 1500s, he could make sense of those papers. And he said what Nostradamus was doing was he was using a solar chart method. He would always put the sun in the first house, and his method was relatively very simple, and he emphasized the north and south node of the moon a lot, the dragon's head and dragon's tail. So I took it one step further than Louis, though. Louis still uses astrological signs. I basically do what Louis taught me, which is I learned from Louis. We were just friends. He'd say, come down from L.A. and hang out with me in San Diego. And then we'd go out to clubs and have fun and just do stuff. But he would always be talking about the stars. He's like, I'm going to pound this stuff into your head so it's like a reflex. And then he eventually taught a course in L.A. and he gave me half price off, and I went and studied with him for a week. And so anyway, with Nostradamus, though, so that's where Jordan's getting that from. And what I did, I took the constellation, I took the signs out, I got rid of astrological signs, and I started using constellations. And that's something Louis wasn't doing. He's still using signs. And when you use signs, the chart still gets a little weird. So I started using constellations, and that's why Jordan's saying this is based on Nostradamus' work. Now, that being said, Nostradamus also spoke about Ophiuchus. Well, Ophiuchus only exists if you're looking at the sky. Ophiuchus does not exist when you're talking about astrological signs. So when I go on the Google and I type in Ophiuchus and Nostradamus, and a whole show comes up about the lost books of Nostradamus and Ophiuchus, that tells me, using simple deductive reasoning, this man named Nostradamus was looking at the sky with his telescope. He wasn't using astrological signs. And there's still a lot of debate around this. I mean, a lot of professional astrologers don't want to talk about constellations. They like the signs. So.
Right. Well, I got a comment to make about Nostradamus. Now, a few years ago, actually, first of all, did you see the pictures I sent you with the hoodie with the star and crescent on?
Yeah, and I'm going to make a folder for you, and I'm going to save those pictures so I can look at them a little close. But when you sent me that stuff, I looked at all that stuff. But I don't necessarily understand all the symbolism.
Well, the star and crescent, of course, are signs of Islam.
Right, that I know.
Now you notice on my hood there's a star and crescent on my left and my right. And on my chest is a tornado and lightning. Of course, a tornado, it swirls, counterclockwise or clockwise, depending on where you are on Earth. And lightning is up and down, so that's a holy cross, up and down, back and forth. And on the back, you see the yin and the yang, which is basically light, darkness, life, death, or a sign of the universe. Now, concerning Nostradamus, when he predicted the end of the world, there was a movie made with the dude that played not Perry Mason, that actor. Orson Welles. He made a movie on Nostradamus' prophecies about the end of the world and the Son of Man. And when the Son of Man had on his head a symbol with a star and two crescents. Now, when I went and made that jacket, I forgot about that movie. But the movie has come back in my mind, as you mentioned, so we're talking about Nostradamus. In that movie with Nostradamus in the end of the world, there was a man, and they portrayed him as a Persian named Kevin. I'm just rhyming now, forget that. Anyway, he was like a Persian guy. And on his head was a star and two crescents, and one of the crescents was a sickle. Now, the sickle was associated with the Grim Reaper or Saturn.
Correct.
And in that movie, he was talking about the Son of Man. He was bringing destruction and all of this. And that was the movie Orson Welles on the prophecies of Nostradamus. And I find it very interesting that on that man's head was the symbol related to Saturn and two crescents on his head. And just within the last week or so, I had a hoodie made looking like the freaking Grim Reaper with two symbols on my head.
Well,
and my name just happened to be Kevin or Saturn.
I'm glad you brought this up.
In.
I'm glad you brought this up because this now it makes sense to me. It took 2 hours to finally figure this out. Your dragon's tail's in Gemini. Gemini means speaking the way we're speaking now. A north node in Sagittarius, since it's ruled by Jupiter and Neptune, Sagittarius also means communicating symbolically. This is another reason why I think you're interested in, I want Jordan Maxwell to hear about my stars. Because you, with your north node in Sagittarius, that's how you really like to communicate, is with symbols. And that's how you're supposed to communicate, because those symbols cut right down to the subconscious, get right down to the real meaning of things. And you know, with a north node and your moon being in Sagittarius, I'm dispensing with the sentences, and I'm going to go right to the symbolic language. That's a big part of what you're supposed to be doing. You know, you already do. I don't need to tell you what you're supposed to be doing, like some kind of father figure. That's a big part of what you do. You love symbols. You love it. You love it, and you're supposed to, for whatever strange reason. You know, hey, some people might think the tattoo in the middle of your forehead is a little bit strange. You're supposed to be doing that. It's the symbols, because it knocks people on their ass when they see you. The fuck is this guy telling me? And there ain't nothing to talk about. There ain't no sense explaining. Either you get the symbol or you don't. And if you don't get it, it don't matter. I'm talking right to your soul, right to your subconscious. So, if you got one strange chart, Kevin, I'm going to tell you that. You got one strange, powerful chart. Whoever said you ain't operating in this both feet in this reality is absolutely correct. You ain't supposed to be. You know,
that was my dad, my stepdad, I should say.
Yeah. So, I'm going to wrap it up, man, because I think that's a good 2 hours. I'll get this reading out to you. Think about this stuff. Ponder some of the stuff that's been saying. You got any questions? Just shoot me a call or shoot me an email, and we can start going into more specific stuff. But this is a lot to put together. You know what I mean? It's a pretty complicated chart. So, you know, when you start getting into somebody who has a north node in Sagittarius, there's all this stuff going on with Saturn, there's stuff going on with Pisces, and it's all working together. I mean, this kind of stuff's sometimes hard to get a grasp on. You know what I mean? It's trying to, you know, let's talk about it. Let's try to explain the music of Jimi Hendrix. Sometimes you just got to listen to it. You know, you can't necessarily put it into the words. So that's what we're kind of dealing with a little bit with your chart. I don't mean that to sound like a cop-out, but, you know, you're just dealing with like a symbolic language, you know? And that's
Are we still being recorded?
Yes, we are.
Good. So, I want to make sure that,
I got a couple more things to say, too, but I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
In terms of transits right now, you've got the North Node going through your 8th house in Libra. And Saturn's there in the 8th house. So also right now, you know, with Saturn, 8th house is the house of death. So the 8th house being the house of death. Now, when I say death, that doesn't just necessarily mean physical death. Death could be, I consider death to be like transcending some boundary. If you have a philosophical epiphany, that can be a form of death. Because you never see the world the same way again. So you've got that North Node, and transiting Saturn's going through Libra in the 8th house right now. At this particular time, you're extremely fixated on Saturn. You know, it's really affecting you now. This North Node in Libra, the dignified ruler of Libra, is Venus. You have Venus in the 1st house. So, you know, in some ways, how to put this North Node in Libra with Saturn going through there. I got to think about that one, Kevin. I got to think about what that means. I'm going to have to get back on the horn with you and think about what that means. But let's just put it this way. That North Node will transit out of Libra November 2013, and then North Node's going to go into Virgo, your 7th house, how you face the world. That'll be in Virgo in the 7th house from basically November 2013 to January 2016. Virgo's ruled by Mercury. You've got your Mercury in Aquarius, so the 7th house, you're getting ready to talk about some stuff. I don't know if you're going to, See, Jordan Maxwell has a north node in Virgo. When that north node goes through Virgo, Virgo means explaining things. Virgo means being analytical about things. It means cleaning things up, talking about, making things clear. So you're getting ready. You're going to have a 2-year period where you're going to be doing some talking, it looks like, or explaining something, getting your word out there. I'm trying to think what this north node in Libra means in the 8th house of death, with Saturn going through there right now.
It sounds like death and justice.
It's you definitely you're kind of learning like the real laws of Saturn, and maybe you're going to get some of this through Jordan by meeting him. But with this north node in Libra, you're kind of learning the real laws of life and death. That in some ways it's basically an illusion. And, the North Node going through Libra where Saturn's exalted, you have Saturn in your 3rd house in Taurus. So that's lighting up that area. Your thoughts on, what it basically means is your thoughts on Saturn, they're getting stronger and stronger and stronger. You're getting more, you're getting more established in your convictions about Saturn, that what I got about this planet is crazy as what I'm talking about, 2673 being the axial tilt of Saturn. I know what I got on Saturn. I know it. I fucking know it. It's rock solid. No one can rebut what I'm saying about Saturn. It's not possible. That's what I'm getting with your North Node going through Libra in the 8th house. And Saturn's transiting through there too. Because Saturn is the ruler of death. It rules the death of the body. That's what it rules. So right now, the information's just flooding in about Saturn. This is what Saturn's about. I'm going to talk about it. I don't give a damn.
Instead of calling myself Dark Side Infinity, couldn't I call myself the Angel of Death?
You could call yourself the Angel of Death, but see, you ain't thinking about the Angel of Death and the Grim Reaper everybody else the way everybody else thinks about it. For you, I think death is just the beginning. It ain't the
right.
Most people are scared to death, literally and figuratively, of that shit. They don't want to discuss that topic. They don't want to go there. They want to pretend it's just a long way away. Not you. And now, right now, with the North Node going through the 8th house of death itself, you're feeling it like, I got this shit figured out. I got it rock solid. And I think that's also part of the reason why you feel like, man, I got to come out and meet this guy, Jordan Maxwell. And I want him to know my chart. I want him to understand that when I talk about Saturn, I just ain't some fan coming for an autograph. I'm going to tell you some stuff you need. I'm telling you, you need to hear what I gotta say, because what I gotta say, I know it about Saturn. It's rock solid, and you're the only cat out there publicly talking about Saturn to this degree. I've got to. It's a matter of life and death. Period. Now, that's in your 8th house. Also, too, that 8th house, that's the house of corporate money. Let's just put it this way. You've got the dragon's tail now transiting through Aries. It went into Aries around January 2013. It'll be out of Aries. The dragon's tail, when it transits, usually means stress. So you've got the dragon's tail going through your 2nd house in Aries. You might be going through like a restructuring of your values. When that dragon's tail's in Aries in the 2nd house, on a mundane level, it can sometimes manifest as a little bit of stress with money. Okay? But your money's what you spend your money on is a reflection of your values. So with the dragon's tail in your 2nd house, you might be reevaluating your values. You might be thinking, since the North Node's going through Libra in the 8th house, I need to look at what some other people are talking about in regards to some of the things I'm into, because just looking at it strictly from my vantage point is becoming a bit of dead end at this time. Just at this time. This is not permanent, but that's what I'm getting, Kevin. That's just what I'm getting when I'm looking at this. I don't know what that means, but you might just be thinking it's time for me to connect with some others on this stuff and see what, bounce the ideas around the wall, see if anybody else catches the ball, because just, I've done enough solo work for a while. I need to connect and just have some discussions with some other people. Maybe they'll comprehend what I'm talking about. That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting. I don't know. You tell me if that's right, but that's what I'm getting, what this means.
Yeah, that sounds accurate to me.
You know? You just know, like, this dragon's head and tail keeps moving. It's going to be out of Libra November 2013. And it's going to be out of the dragon's tail in Aries March 2014. So it's not going to be there that long. But right now, it's just like, I need to connect with other people. Right now, what I've discovered on my own is just not quite enough. I need to bring in some more influences. That's what's happening right now. So, but anyway, but also too though, once again, I'm going to reiterate this. What you've discovered about Saturn, you know, it's rock solid. It's rock solid. I got shit on Saturn nobody's ever heard before. Period. That's it. And that's what you got. That's what you got right now. So, you know who you are, man. You know who you are. Hopefully from reading this chart, it just put who you are in another conceptual framework, and now you can think about things with who you are articulated in a different manner. But it's probably just reinforcing a lot of things you already know about yourself. You know?
Exactly.
You got it, man. Your chart, man, is like this, like... It's like cosmic, it's like a rainbow, and it's like black. I mean, when I say black, I mean black like a black hole. This is like the energy of this chart, just the way it's laid out, I can feel it. It's like I'm kind of, the law of gravity is applying somewhat, but my destination's not here. I'm heading towards that black hole in the galactic center. And then from there I might drop one off in Andromeda Galaxy. It's not really... Because sometimes Saturn can be very earthbound, but yours is not, man. Yours is not. So, I don't know, man. I gotta let this go through my brain.
One time I had the thought, basically, I said, what if I was God? Meaning, what if I was God of the universe, and I decided to try to forget who I was, and then I decided to wake up? I actually had those kind of thoughts.
Well,
I said, what if I'm God?
You're supposed to entertain those kind of thoughts, though, because that gets into real interesting philosophical areas as to who we really are and who's really asking those questions and why are they being asked. So that's where you're supposed to be, man. You know, according to your stars. Now, Kevin, I'd say we touched on about 25% of your chart. There's still the fact to walk through. You're Aries in the second house, you're a Taurus in the third house, you're a Gemini in the fourth house, you're a Cancer in the fifth house, you're a Leo in the sixth house.
This is 25%, then you got 600 coming.
No. I'm not, you talking about money? You pay me one time, that's it. No. If you keep me on the phone for 15 hours next time, you maybe send me a tip, but that's it. You pay your one-time fee. You ain't paying no 600. Forget that. No way. That's my own selfish reasons why I do that. But what I'm saying though is, like Jordan's chart, man, I gotta go back to it. I've been looking at his chart for 10 years. Every time I look at it, I see something new. Like, let me give you an example why we can't finish this today. And you never will finish it. Keep that in mind. You're a Cancer in the fifth house. Cancer's ruled by Neptune. Cancer's ruled by the moon, but its exalted rulers are Jupiter and Neptune. I could spend another 2 hours talking about what it means for you to be a Cancer in the fifth house and how your dragon's head in Sagittarius, which is influenced by the moon, Neptune, and Jupiter, how that's affecting your fifth house of love and romance, which is also the house of procreativity. It makes babies, and also that procreative energy can be used for creative energy. That's another 2-hour discussion just on that house. Okay? You see what I mean? These charts, it's like a mathematical fractal. It never ends, man. It just keeps going and going and going. Because another thing too, people want to look at their stars and know the future. But strictly speaking, when you're looking at these stars out in space, that light's not getting here sometimes till 300 years later. You're looking out into the space, into the stellar background. You're looking into the past. You're looking into your past. You're trying to predict your past trying to predict your future by looking into the past, right? The point I'm making is when you look at these stars, you start getting into areas beyond just normal bounds of logic. You get into what appears to be paradoxical situations, you know? It's deep, deep stuff,
Right.
man. You're looking at stuff in your chart that's not going to be resolved in one lifetime. You're looking at stuff that's going to be played out over a long period of time. And this stuff is working through you in this particular incarnation, so to speak. So...